Welcome to the long road. Tonight, we visit ancient Athens in the year 429 before the Common Era. Settle in, close your eyes, and let your breathing slow. Let the centuries fall away. You are a citizen of Athens, living on the quiet slopes of Melite, near the Pnyx. This morning, you will carry a small honeycomb offering through the winding lanes of the city, across the great Agora and up the sacred rock to the Parthenon, where the golden statue of Athena waits in the cool half-light. If you enjoy these walks, please like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Now, let the dawn come to you. A rooster is crowing in the courtyard next door, and it is time to wake. You wake to the sound of a rooster crowing in the courtyard next door. The call is sharp and certain in the gray half-light, and a moment later another rooster answers from further down the hill, then another further still. The city of Athens is waking around you, one courtyard at a time. The light in the room is thin and blue. You are lying on a low wooden bed in the andron, the room that faces east, and through the open doorway you can see the courtyard. The fig tree stands dark against the brightening sky. The well stone gleams faintly where dew has settled. You swing your legs down. The stone floor is cool beneath your bare feet. The house is quiet. Upstairs in the gynecon, the women's quarters, your wife and son are still sleeping. Your son, who 3 weeks ago burned with fever so fierce you feared the worst, and who now sleeps peacefully, his breath even, his skin cool to the touch. You made a vow during those dark nights. If Athena would spare the boy, you would bring an offering to her temple on the sacred rock. A small honeycomb, wrapped in linen, golden and heavy with sweetness. It sits on the wooden shelf beside the door, waiting. Today you will carry it up to the Parthenon. You wash your face and hands with cold water from the clay basin. The water is sharp against your skin. You pour a little over the back of your neck, and the chill runs down between your shoulders, and the last warmth of sleep leaves you. A simple akratasmon for breakfast. Barley bread, coarse and dense, torn into pieces and dipped in dark wine. The wine is rough and unwatered at this early hour, and the bread softens as it soaks. A handful of dried figs, a few black olives, their skins wrinkled and bitter and salt. You eat standing in the courtyard beneath the fig tree, watching the sky turn from gray to pale gold above the rooftops. The Acropolis is visible from here. From the flat roof of this house, from almost any rooftop in Melite, you can see it rising to the east above the city. The new Parthenon catches the first sunlight, its pentelic marble almost golden in the dawn. The painted figures on the pediment are bright even at this distance. Red and blue and gold, the colors of Athena's birth, vivid against the pale stone. The Parthenon has stood for only 3 years. You remember the final scaffolding coming down, the city gathering to see the temple fully revealed for the first time. Ictinos and Callicrates had designed it. Phidias had overseen every carved metope, every column, every painted figure. 8 columns across the front, instead of the usual 6, making it wider and grander than any temple before it. Pericles pushed for it. He argued before the assembly that the city's wealth should be made visible, that Athens deserved monuments equal to its power. Some accused him of using the tribute of the Delian League to glorify Athens at the Allies' expense. He reportedly offered to pay for the entire thing himself and inscribe only his own name. The assembly, not wanting him to claim the glory alone, voted to continue the public funding. 469 silver talents, roughly the annual tribute of the entire alliance, spent on marble and gold. But that is a thought for later. Now there is only the morning and the quiet courtyard and the walk ahead. You say a brief prayer at the household altar, a few words to Zeus Herkios, protector of the home, asking his continued care over this house, and to Athena, guardian of the city, to whom you owe more than words can carry today. You take the honeycomb from the shelf. It is wrapped in clean linen, tied with a cord. The weight of it is satisfying in your hand, sweet and solid. An offering that means something because it costs something, and because the bees made it without being asked, and because your son is alive. You cross the courtyard to the wooden street door. The door is heavy, the wood dark with age, the bronze latch worn smooth by years of hands. You lift the latch and step through. The herm stands at the threshold, a squared stone pillar, waist high, topped with the head of Hermes. His face is archaic and smiling, the expression carved in an older style than the naturalism of the new temples. A small garland of dried flowers hangs from the pillar, left by your wife a few days ago. Every house in Athens has a herm at its door. Every crossroads has one. Hermes, the guardian of boundaries and travelers, watching you leave and welcoming you home. 14 years from now, in a single night, every herm in Athens will be mutilated. Stone faces smashed, the act of sacrilege so complete and so coordinated that the city will convulse with fear and suspicion. Alcibiades will be blamed, the Sicilian expedition will be cursed, and the fate of Athens will begin to turn. But none of that has happened yet. This morning, the herm smiles its ancient smile, and you touch the stone briefly as you pass, a habit so old you do not think about it. The lane outside is narrow. The houses of Melite turn their blank walls to the street. Mud brick above stone foundations, plastered smooth, sometimes whitewashed, but usually left the color of pale earth. All life in an Athenian house happens inside, around the courtyard. From the street you see nothing but walls and closed doors. The packed earth underfoot is still damp from the night air. Your sandals press softly into it. The lane curves gently downhill, following the slope of the hillside. From behind a wall to your right you hear the splash of water, someone drawing from a well, the murmur of a woman's voice, the clink of a clay pot against stone. Melite is one of the oldest demes of Athens. The houses here belong to citizens of middling status. Not the wealthy who live closer to the Agora in houses with pebble mosaic floors, not the poor who crowd the lower streets near the gates. The people of Melite are small craftsmen, minor officials, men who serve their turn on the Council of 500, and then return to their workshops. Respectable, unremarkable, the backbone of the city. The streets have no names. There is no sewerage. Chamber pots are emptied into the lanes, and the smell, in the warmth of a late spring morning, is noticeable but not unbearable. You have lived with it your whole life. The scent of wood smoke from morning cooking fires drifts through the narrow lanes, mixing with the sharper scent of olive oil heating in clay pots. Someone is frying something. The smoke rises slowly into the still air. You pass a grapevine trained over a doorway, its new spring growth bright green, the tendrils curling upward. In a few months it will shade the entrance. A fig tree pushes out of a crack in a garden wall, wild and uncultivated, its leaves broad and dusty. You have walked perhaps 300 meters from your door. A small sanctuary appears on your left, set back slightly from the lane. The sanctuary of Heracles Alexikakos, the averter of evil. A modest temple, quiet at this hour, no priest in attendance, no supplicants. Just the stone altar and the dark doorway and the faint smell of old offerings. Heracles Alexikakos. The name was given after the great plague that struck Athens a generation ago. Not the plague that is coming, the one that will arrive later this very year and take Pericles himself and a quarter of the city. An earlier sickness, now half forgotten, that prompted the people of Melite to dedicate this small shrine. You pass it without stopping, but the name echoes, the averter of evil. You are grateful today for averting. The lane continues downhill, the slope steepens. To your right, through a gap between two houses, you catch a glimpse southward toward the Pnyx. The great retaining wall curves around the natural amphitheater of the hillside, the stone seating carved into the rock. 6,000 citizens can sit there, facing north toward the Acropolis, to hear the speakers and cast their votes. The Pnyx is empty now. The assembly meets roughly 40 times each year, and today is not one of those days. When it does meet, the scene is unlike anything else in the world. Any male citizen over 18 can stand at the stone bema and speak. Any citizen can vote. Pericles has spoken from that platform, Themistocles before him, and Aristides the Just. The decisions that shape the course of the Greek world are made by a show of hands on that bare hillside. In practice, attendance is often thin. A quorum of 6,000 is required for certain votes, and when numbers fall short, public slaves are sent into the Agora with long ropes dipped in red dye. They stretch the ropes across the square and walk forward, herding reluctant citizens up the hill. Anyone whose cloak is stained with red is marked as a shirker. Democracy, in Athens, sometimes requires a push. You smile at the thought and continue downhill. The lanes of Melite are giving way now. The houses thin. Ahead and below, the Agora opens up, the civic and commercial heart of Athens. You can hear it before you see it. The noise rises to meet you as you descend. Voices, hammering, the braying of a donkey, the low, constant hum of hundreds of conversations overlapping. Olive trees line the slopes here on the lower edges of the hill. The sacred Moriae, protected by law, each one belonging to Athena herself. To cut down a sacred olive is punishable by death. The trees are gnarled and silver-leaved, their trunks twisted by decades of Attic sun. Between them, the dry, rocky ground is thick with wild thyme and oregano, and the scent rises as your sandals crush the leaves underfoot. The characteristic smell of Attica, warm herbs on dry stone. A cicada begins to sing from one of the olive trees. A single voice at first, a high electric drone, and then another joins, and another. As the morning warms, they will fill every tree and garden with their rising chorus. For now it is just these few, tentative and intermittent, testing the warmth. You have come about 600 meters from your door. The edge of the Agora spreads before you. The open square is roughly 200 meters across, bounded by stoas on the north and south, the council buildings on the west, the Panathenaic Way cutting diagonally through from the northwest toward the Acropolis in the southeast. The Agora is already filling with people. It is not just a marketplace, though the market is here. It is where Athens conducts its public life. Politics, law, commerce, philosophy, gossip. Everything happens in this open square, under these plane trees. In the shade of these colonnaded stoas, the boundary stones at the edges are carved with the words, "I am the boundary of the Agora." Inside, certain disgraced citizens are forbidden to enter. You step onto the flat, hard-packed earth of the square. The surface changes underfoot, from the soft, damp lanes of the hillside to firm gravel and compacted dirt. The space opens around you. After the narrow lanes of Melite, the Agora feels vast and exposed. The sky is wide above. The morning sun slants across from the east, catching the columns of the stoas and casting long shadows across the open ground. The great oriental plane trees planted by Cimon decades ago now give deep shade across the center of the square. Their trunks are thick and mottled, the bark peeling in the warmth, revealing pale fresh wood beneath. The canopy is broad and spreading. Beneath the trees, wooden benches are set out, and old men already sit there, waiting for the day's arguments to begin. Cimon planted these trees in the 460s, when Athens was flush with Persian spoils and the empire was young. He beautified the Agora, the academy, the roads. The trees have outlasted him by 30 years. They will outlast everyone walking beneath them today. The smell of the Agora is layered and rich. fresh bread from a baker's stall, leather from the shoemakers who cluster near the south side. The metallic ring and heat smell of bronze from the workshops where smiths are already hammering. Fish, thyme, sweat. The warm animal scent of the donkeys and mules carrying goods through the wider paths between the stalls. A man sells sausages from a portable grill, the charcoal glowing under a rack of small links. Moneylenders sit at their trapezai, their tables, counting silver. The word for table, trapeza, will one day give rise to the word for bank, but no one knows that yet. Barbers work in the open air, their customers sitting on stools, and the conversation around a barber's stool is the Athenian equivalent of a news bulletin. This is where rumors begin. Pigeons strut across the open ground, pecking at crumbs and grain spills. They nest in every temple pediment and stoa roofline, their soft cooing a constant backdrop to the Agora's noise. Swallows dart through the columns of the stoas, catching insects in sharp arcs, nesting under the eaves where the stone is warm. You walk north, skirting the edge of the square. The honeycomb is tucked under your arm, wrapped in its linen cloth. A few people glance at you, but no one pays particular attention. The Agora is full of people carrying things. A potter with a stack of red-figure cups. A woman with a basket of garlands woven from myrtle, sacred to Aphrodite. A boy leading 2 goats toward the south side. Ahead and to your left stands the Stoa Poikile, the painted stoa. It was built about 30 years ago on the north side of the Agora, and it is famous throughout the Greek world for the paintings inside. You have seen them many times, but they pull at you still. You alter your path slightly, drawn by habit or by the cool shade of its colonnade. The stoa is a long colonnaded building, open at the front, with Doric columns running its full length. Stoas are the essential public buildings of Greek civic life. They provide shade and shelter, space for conversation, for commerce, for simply standing and watching the world pass. The painted stoa does all of this, but it also holds what many consider the greatest paintings in Athens. You step into the shade of the colonnade, the temperature drops. The stone floor is cool beneath your sandals. Inside, the paintings cover the rear wall in large panels. Polygnotos painted the fall of Troy. Mykon and Pnyx painted the Battle of Marathon. They are rendered in earth reds and blacks and ochres, the figures life-size, the scenes sweeping across the wall. The Marathon panel draws you, as it always does. The Persians are falling. Miltiades commands from the center. The Athenian hoplites charge at a run across the marshy plain. The goddess Athena hovers above the battle, barely visible, a presence more than a figure. The painting is 40 years old now, and the colors have softened slightly, but the energy of it is undiminished. 11,000 Athenians and Plataeans against perhaps 25,000 Persians. The day Athens proved that the great king could be beaten. A few citizens stand before the paintings, studying them. A father points out details to his son. 2 men argue quietly about whether Polygnotos captured the expression of Cassandra correctly. The paintings serve as both art and history lesson and political reminder. This is what Athens has done. This is what Athens is. A century from now, a philosopher from Cyprus called Zeno will teach in this very stoa. His students will be called the men of the stoa, the Stoics, and their philosophy of endurance and rational calm will shape the minds of Romans and emperors. But the stoa does not know this yet. It is simply a building with paintings, where citizens come to look and talk and shelter from the sun. You linger in the shade for a moment longer. The honeycomb is warm against your side. Then you step back out into the sunlight and continue east across the Agora. Near the Stoa Poikile, a knot of men has gathered around a figure you recognize, Socrates. He is about 50 years old, barefoot as always, wearing a worn cloak that has seen better days. His face is broad and plain, his nose flat, his eyes sharp. He looks nothing like the marble busts that will be carved of him after his death. He looks like a stonemason, which is what his father was. He is talking with a young man, and the young man is reddening. You cannot hear every word, but you catch the characteristic rhythm. Socrates asks a question. The young man answers confidently. Socrates asks another question, building on the answer. The young man answers again, less confidently. A third question, and the young man realizes that his first answer contradicts his third. The knot of listeners grins. The young man rubs his neck. Socrates served as a hoplite at Padidea 2 years ago. Alcibiades, the most brilliant and dangerous young man in Athens, praised his endurance on the campaign. He marched barefoot through the Thracian winter. He stood in thought for an entire day and night without moving, the soldiers watching him in astonishment. His trial and execution are still 30 years away. You do not stop to listen. The Parthenon is waiting, and the morning is not yet warm. You walk on carrying the honeycomb, passing through the dappled shade of the plane trees. You come to the altar of the 12 gods in the northwest corner of the Agora. It is a modest enclosure. Low marble walls around a central altar, sheltered by a grove of old olives and bay laurel. The bay laurel is sacred to Apollo, and its sharp, clean scent marks the boundary between the profane bustle of the marketplace and the quiet of sacred ground. This altar was established by the younger Pisistratos, grandson of the tyrant, in 522. It is the central milestone of Attica. All distances in the region are measured from this point. If someone says a place is 30 stadia from Athens, they mean 30 stadia from this altar. It is the still center from which the world of Attica radiates outward. You pause here briefly. The altar is a place of sanctuary. Any suppliant who reaches it is under the protection of the gods. Runaway slaves, accused criminals, foreigners in trouble. The altar does not judge, it simply shelters. You are not a suppliant today. You are a man with a honeycomb, walking to fulfill a vow, but you touch the marble wall as you pass, acknowledging the spot, the way you touched the herm at your door. A stray dog trots past, lean and watchful. The Agora is full of these dogs, tolerated by the vendors, ignored by the citizens. They stake out territories around the food stalls and defend them with low growls against newcomers. This one is heading somewhere with purpose, nose to the ground, following a scent only it can read. You have walked about 1 kilometer from your door, the heart of the Agora. The fish sellers are laying out the morning catch on stone slabs near the south stoa, sardines, anchovies. Red mullet, their scales bright, octopus, laid flat and glistening. The smell is sharp and salt and marine, surprising in a city that sits inland, though the port of Piraeus is only 6 kilometers away, connected by the long walls. The long walls run from Athens to Piraeus, 2 parallel fortifications 6 kilometers long, enclosing a corridor wide enough for 2 carts. Pericles' strategy in the war depends on them. Let the Spartans burn the countryside. As long as the walls hold and the navy controls the sea, Athens can be fed and supplied through Piraeus. The city is an island, in effect connected to its harbor by a stone umbilica. Flies circle above the fish stalls, buzzing in the warm spring air. A vendor swats at them with a cloth. Another calls out prices. The Agora is in full voice now, the morning's commerce building to its steady pitch. You thread between the stalls, stepping around baskets of garlic and bunches of dried herbs, careful with the honeycomb under your arm. To your left, on the western edge of the Agora, the civic buildings stand in a row. You can see the Tholos, the distinctive round building with its conical roof of diamond-shaped terracotta tiles. The roof catches the light, each tile a different shade of reddish-brown, the pattern geometric and pleasing. The Tholos is the working heart of Athenian democracy. It is where the 50 Prytaneus, the standing committee of the council, dine at public expense. They rotate every 36 days among the 10 tribes. At least 17 of them must sleep inside every night, so that Athens is never without its government. Not for an hour, not even in the dark watches before dawn. Someone is always awake in the tholos, holding the state seal, tending the sacred fire, ready to respond if crisis comes. The building itself is a circular drum, about 18 meters across, with 6 interior columns supporting that beautiful conical roof. Inside, they keep the official weights and measures of Athens, the standards by which all commerce in the city is calibrated. The tholos is not grand. It is not beautiful in the way the Parthenon is beautiful, but it is the building where the daily work of governing a democracy is done, and there is a quiet dignity in that. Next to the tholos stands the Bouleuterion, the council house where the Boule of 500 meets every day to prepare business for the assembly. A rectangular hall with tiered wooden seating inside, it is where the laws are debated before they reach the Pnyx. Beside it, the older Bouleuterion, no longer used for meetings, now serves as the metron, the archive of the city. Every decree, every law, every treaty is recorded and stored here. The memory of Athens, written on papyrus and stone. Above these civic buildings on the hill called the Kolonos Agoraios, the temple of Hephaestus rises against the western sky, the Hephaesteum. A Doric temple, 6 columns across the front, dedicated jointly to Hephaestus the smith god and Athena Ergane, goddess of crafts. It is nearly complete, its metapiece carved with the labors of Heracles and the deeds of Theseus, Athens' founding hero. The Hephaesteum overlooks the metalworkers and potter's quarter. Below it, the bronze smiths hammer at their anvils, and the ring of metal carries up the hillside. Hephaestus, the lame god, the craftsman of Olympus, looks down on the men who practice his art. It is a fitting arrangement. The god above, the workers below, the sound of hammering, the shared language between them. You pass the South Stoa on your right. Built just a year or two ago, it runs along the south side of the Agora, a long facade of Doric columns. 16 rooms open off the back, used for official dining and the business of the city. It is functional and handsome, porous limestone covered in fine stucco and painted to resemble marble. At a distance, the illusion is convincing. Near the South Stoa, the Heliaia, the great law court, holds its sessions in the open air. Athenian juries number in the hundreds, sometimes the thousands. Justice here is not the province of a single judge. It is decided by the citizens themselves, drawing their jury assignments by lot, casting their votes with bronze ballots. The system is noisy, sometimes chaotic, and utterly Athenian. Nearby, the mint stamps out the silver tetradrachms that are the dominant trade currency of the Eastern Mediterranean. Athena's owl on one side, Athena's profile on the other. The silver comes from the mines at Laurion in southern Attica, worked by slaves in terrible conditions deep underground. The coins that come from their labor are legendary for their purity. Every merchant from Sicily to Egypt trusts the Athenian owl. The Stoa Basileos stands on the north side, a modest rectangular building with 8 Doric columns. The headquarters of the Archon Basileus, who oversees the city's religious law and sacred calendar. On stone slabs before the Stoa, the laws of Solon and Draco are inscribed for all to read. The oldest written laws of Athens, carved in stone so that no magistrate can claim ignorance and no powerful man can bend them unrecorded. You are crossing the Agora now, moving southeast. The Panathenaic Way opens before you, wider than any other street in Athens, 10 to 12 meters across, hard-packed earth and gravel, rutted from the wheels of carts. This is the Great Processional Road. It runs diagonally through the Agora from the Dipollon Gate in the northwest to the Acropolis in the southeast. Every 4 years, the great Panathenea fills this road with the grandest procession in the Greek world. The sacred peplos, a new robe woven by the Araphoroi, young girls chosen from noble Athenian families, is carried along this route to dress the ancient olive wood statue of Athena Polias. The procession includes cavalry, charioteers, musicians, sacrificial cattle with gilded horns, basket bearers, and the full pageant of Athenian society. This is the procession depicted on the Parthenon frieze, the one you will see soon enough, carved in marble far above your head. Today the road is ordinary. A donkey plods along it, laden with amphorae of wine. A boy drives 2 goats ahead of him with a switch. An old woman walks slowly, a clay jug balanced on her head. You join the flow of foot traffic moving southeast toward the Acropolis, which grows larger with every step. The surface underfoot changes as you walk the Panathenaic way. The gravel is coarser here, the earth more firmly packed. Ruts from cartwheels run in parallel grooves. The road has been walked and ridden and processed upon for generations, and the ground has been compacted to something almost as hard as stone. You are about 1.3 kilometers from your door now. The Hephaesteum rises on the hill to your left, its columns catching the mid-morning light. Ahead, the Propylaea crowns the sacred rock. The marble gateway is enormous, even from here, 6 columns on its western facade, bright against the deeper blue of the sky above. The sacred rock of the Acropolis rises steeply above the city, 156 meters above the sea, with sheer cliffs on 3 sides. The only approach is from the west, where the slope is gentlest, and even here it is steep. The Acropolis was a fortress before it was a sanctuary, and the rock itself is the ultimate defensive wall. Before the temples, before the statues, before the golden ivory, there was simply the rock, high ground, a place that could be held. Athens in this year, 429, is at the height of its power and at the beginning of its crisis. The Peloponnesian War against Sparta began 2 years ago. Pericles' strategy is clear and ruthless. Abandon the Attic countryside to the Spartan army. Let them burn the farms and cut the olive trees. Withdraw behind the walls. Rely on the navy and the tribute from the Delian League. As long as Athens controls the sea, Athens survives. The cost of this strategy is visible everywhere. The city is swollen with refugees from the countryside. Families who left their farms and their vineyards ahead of the Spartan invasion, crowding into the city with whatever they could carry. They camp in temples, in open spaces along the long walls. The streets are more crowded than they should be. The wells and fountains are overused. The city was built for perhaps 40,000 people. Far more than that live here now. Later this year, the plague will come. No one knows this yet. Not Pericles, not the physicians, not the priests. The crowded conditions, the refugees camped in every available space, the strain on water and sanitation will help the disease spread with terrifying speed. Perhaps a quarter of the population will die, including Pericles himself. But this morning, the spring air is clean, the sky is blue, and the city does not yet know what is coming. You walk on. There is no urgency. The sun is still climbing, the shadows still long. A tortoise crosses the path ahead of you, its shell patterned with geometric shapes, its legs moving with deliberate slowness, sacred to Hermes, who made the first lyre from a tortoise shell, hollowing it out and stringing it with gut and playing the first music. You watch it reach the far side of the road and disappear into a clump of dry grass. The Panathenaic way begins to climb. The flat ground of the Agora basin gives way to a gentle slope, then a steeper one, as the road approaches the base of the Acropolis. You have walked about 1.7 kilometers. The marble steps ahead mark the beginning of the formal ascent. The climb begins in earnest. The ramp up to the Propylaea is steep, the surface shifting from packed earth to stone. Marble steps broad and shallow, laid across the path. The stone is warm under your sandals. Pentelic marble, the same fine-grained white stone from Mount Pentelicon, 15 kilometers to the northeast, that built the Parthenon above you. It has a faint golden tone, barely perceptible, that deepens as the stone ages. Fresh cut, it is almost pure white. In a few centuries it will glow like honey. Other people are climbing with you. A priest leads a small goat upward, its hooves clicking on the stone. The goat is destined for sacrifice on one of the altars above. Two women carry baskets on their heads, a group of men who look like visitors from another city, perhaps ambassadors or tourists, gaze upward at the propylaea with open mouths. Even for those who have seen great buildings, the approach to the Acropolis is something apart. Your breath comes harder as the ramp steepens. The honeycomb is warm and heavy under your arm. The linen wrapping is slightly damp where it presses against your tunic. The smell of incense drifts down from the summit, thin and sweet, mixing with the scent of warm stone and the herby perfume of thyme and sage from the rocky slopes on either side of the path. Bay laurel grows at the edges of the approach, its dark leaves glossy, its scent sharp and clean, sacred to Apollo. Used for victor's wreaths, the bay marks the boundary between the everyday world below and the sacred precinct above. You pass through a zone of cypress trees, dark and vertical, their resinous scent heavy in the warm air. Cypress grows in sacred groves and near tombs. Here, on the approach to the home of the gods, the trees stand like silent attendants. Ravens circle above the Acropolis, riding the thermals that rise from the sun-warmed rock face. Their harsh calls echo off the cliff. Sacred birds watched for omens. They nest in the crags and crevices of the sacred rock. You watch one bank and turn, its wings catching the light before it settles on a ledge high on the north face. The propylaea looms above you now, the monumental gateway to the Acropolis, designed by Mnesicles, built over 5 years from 437 to 432. It is a building that exists to frame a threshold, to mark the moment of crossing from the world of men to the world of the gods. And it does this with a grandeur that still takes your breath, even though you have climbed these steps many times. 6 Doric columns rise on the western facade, tall and perfectly proportioned. 5 doorways pierce the central hall, the widest in the middle, broad enough for the sacrificial cattle of the Panathenea to pass through. The columns are pentelic marble, the walls are marble, the steps are marble. Everything gleams. The stone is still new enough to look almost wet in the sunlight. You have reached the 2-kilometer mark. 2 kilometers from your door in Melite, you pause at the threshold of the propylaea and look back. The Agora spreads below, its stoas and plane trees miniaturized by distance, the rooftops of Melite to the right, the slopes of the Pnyx. Beyond the city walls, the gray-green hills of Attica rolling away toward distant mountains, the whole world of Athens laid out beneath your feet. To your right, just before the propylaea, stands the temple of Athena Nike, a small Ionic temple perched on the bastion, delicate and elegant, 4 slender columns on each end, carved friezes depicting Greek victories over the Persians. Athena, as goddess of victory, the temple is small enough to feel intimate, jewel-like, set against the enormous scale of the propylaea behind it. You turn back to the gateway and step through. The transition is one of the great architectural experiences of the ancient world, though no one has called it that yet. The central passage is cool and shadowed. Inside, the columns change from Doric to Ionic, taller and more slender, with their scrolled capitals catching the dim light. The propylaea contains both orders of Greek architecture, Doric strength on the outside, Ionic grace within. Above you, the coffered marble ceiling is painted. Gold stars on a deep blue field, a night sky made of stone, hovering in the shadows. The paint is fresh, the gold still bright, and in the cool shade of the passage, the stars seem to glow faintly against their blue ground. You walk beneath them, your sandals quiet on the marble floor. To your left, In the north wing, the Pnyx houses a collection of paintings. You have seen them before. They are smaller and more intimate than the grand battle scenes in the Stoa Poikile, and the room that holds them is quiet, set apart from the flow of visitors passing through the central hall. But today you do not stop. The Parthenon is ahead. The construction of the Propylaea was suspended when the war began. Mnesicles had not finished. The south wing was never completed as planned. There are marks on the marble where blocks were prepared but never set, clamps cut into stone that was never joined. The building is magnificent, but it carries the faint trace of interruption, of a plan that the war did not allow to be fulfilled. You step through the eastern colonnade, and the sky opens. After the cool shadows and the painted stars, the sudden blaze of sunlight on the Acropolis plateau is almost overwhelming. You blink. The light off the marble is fierce. The blue of the sky deepens above you, and the horizon drops away on every side. The Acropolis summit is not empty. It is crowded with sacred things: bronze and marble statues, altars, small treasury buildings, votive offerings on pedestals, all arranged among the larger temples. The ground is pentelic marble paving, warm underfoot, reflecting the light upward, so that everything seems to float in brightness. The first thing you see, directly ahead as you emerge from the Propylaea, is the bronze Athena Primakos, the great statue of Athena the champion, standing in the open air, her spear raised, her shield at her side. She is enormous. The spear tip catches the sun, and sailors approaching Athens from Sonion, 40 kilometers to the south, can see that flash of bronze light as their first glimpse of the city. Phidias made her, as he made the Athena Parthenos inside the temple ahead. But this Athena is bronze, not gold and ivory. She stands in the open, facing the world, a warrior goddess defending her city. The statue was cast from Persian spoils after the victory at Marathon, a trophy made from the enemy's own metal. You walk past the Athena Primakos, giving her a respectful distance. The summit smells of incense and burnt offerings. Thin smoke rises from several altars, drifting in the mild breeze. The scent is layered: frankincense, myrrh, the sharp char of animal fat, the sweeter smell of grain offerings. The whole plateau is perfumed with it. To your left, the north side of the summit, you can see the marks of the Persian destruction. In 480, the army of Xerxes sacked the Acropolis, burning the temples and smashing the statues. The old Parthenon, the one that stood before this one, was destroyed. Column drums from that ruined temple were deliberately built into the north wall of the Acropolis as a memorial. They are visible from the Agora below. A permanent reminder: do not forget what was done here. Do not forget what we rebuilt. The Erechtheion has not yet been built. The ancient olive wood cult statue of Athena Polias, the oldest and most sacred image in Athens, is housed in a temporary structure near the site of the old temple. This is not the Athena Parthenos, the great gold and ivory statue in the new Parthenon. This is something older and stranger. A wooden figure, dark with age, believed to have fallen from heaven. It is this statue that receives the peplos at the Panathenaia. It is this statue that the city truly worships. Nearby, the sacred olive tree of Athena grows in its enclosure. The story says that when Athena contested with Poseidon for the patronage of Athens, she struck the rock with her spear and an olive tree sprang forth. Poseidon struck with his trident and produced a salt spring. The gods judged Athena's gift the more useful, and the city was hers. When the Persians burned the Acropolis, the olive tree burned too. The next day, a fresh green shoot appeared from the stump. The priestesses tend it carefully. You walk south across the plateau toward the Parthenon. The temple grows larger with every step, which seems impossible, because it was already enormous. But scale is strange on the Acropolis. The clear attic light and the reflective marble make distances deceptive. Things are always bigger and further than they appear. 2.5 kilometers from your door, you are here. The Parthenon. 46 outer columns of Pentelic marble rise around the temple in a perfect rectangle. 8 across the front, 8 across the back, 17 down each side. The columns are not straight. They swell slightly in the middle, a technique called entasis, a subtle curvature designed to counteract the optical illusion that makes straight columns appear to sag. The eye reads them as perfectly vertical. They are not. They are alive with a gentle tension, bowing slightly outward, as if breathing. The stylobate, the platform on which the columns stand, is not flat. It curves upwards slightly at the center, rising a few centimeters over its length, another optical correction that makes the whole building seem to lift. These refinements are invisible to the casual eye. You cannot point to them, but you can feel them. The Parthenon feels right in a way that no perfectly straight building ever could. Above the columns, the entablature carries carved metopes around the entire building. On the south side, the battle of the Lapiths and Centaurs. On the north, scenes from the fall of Troy. On the east, the battle of the gods and giants. On the west, the battle of Greeks and Amazons. 4 cycles of conflict between civilization and chaos, order and violence. The message is clear, if you care to read it. Athens stands on the side of order. The pediments, the great triangular spaces at each end, carry full sculptural compositions. On the east, the birth of Athena, springing fully armed from the head of Zeus, witnessed by the assembled gods. On the west, the contest between Athena and Poseidon for the city. The figures are painted in vivid colors, red and blue and gold, the flesh tones warm, the armor glinting with applied metal. In 2,000 years, the paint will have weathered away, and people will think of Greek temples as white. They are not white. They blaze with color. You walk around the south side of the temple, following the colonnade. The columns cast bars of shadow and light across the marble platform. Your sandals are quiet on this stone. The sun is warm on the right side of your face. A pigeon coos from somewhere in the pediment above. Running around the outside of the inner cella wall, visible between the outer columns if you look up, is the Ionic frieze. 160 meters of continuous carved relief depicting the Panathenaic procession. Horsemen, charioteers, musicians, sacrificial cattle, water-bearers, elders, maidens. The whole of Athenian civic life carved in marble, at a height and angle that makes it difficult to see in detail from below. It was not carved for human convenience. It was carved for the gods. The frieze was designed and overseen by Phidias, though teams of carvers did the actual work. You can see the different hands if you look carefully. Some are more fluid, some more precise. But the overall composition is unified, the procession flowing from west to east, converging on the central scene above the eastern entrance where the gods sit watching and the peplos is folded. You come around to the east end of the temple, the main entrance. The great doorway is open, and the interior is visible as a rectangle of shadow beyond the columns. You adjust the honeycomb under your arm. The linen is warm and faintly sticky where the wax has softened in the heat. The east pediment above the entrance shows the birth of Athena. Zeus sits at the center, though the figure is so high above you that the details blur around him. The gods react to the miracle. Horses surge from the corners, the chariot of Helios rising at one end, the chariot of Selene sinking at the other. Dawn and dusk framing the birth of the goddess. Even from directly below, looking up at a steep angle, the composition is breathtaking. You step through the eastern doorway, past the columns, and into the cella. The change is immediate. The blazing attic sunlight gives way to cool dimness. Your eyes need a moment to adjust. The air is different in here, heavier, rich with the smell of olive oil from the lamps, the lingering sweetness of incense, the faint waxy scent of offerings. Your footsteps echo softly off the marble wall. And then you see her. The Athena Parthenon stands at the far end of the cella, facing you 11 meters tall. Gold and ivory over a wooden core, the chryselephantine technique that Phidias perfected. Her skin is ivory, pale and luminous in the dim light. Her robes and armor are gold. Removable gold, approximately 1,140 kilograms of it, designed so that in an emergency it can be taken off and melted down. The statue is a strategic reserve as much as it is a religious object. She wears full armor. The aegis across her chest bears the head of Medusa, carved in ivory, staring outward with a face that turns men to stone. A high-crested helmet sits on her head, flanked by sphinxes. In her right hand, extended on an outstretched palm, she holds a figure of Nike, the goddess of victory. Nike is herself nearly 2 meters tall. In Athena's left hand, a great shield rests against her side, and within the shield coils the sacred serpent. Before the statue, a shallow pool of water is set into the floor. The pool serves two purposes. It reflects light upward, throwing golden radiance onto the statue's ivory face, illuminating details that would otherwise be lost in the gloom. And it keeps the air moist, preventing the ivory from cracking in the dry attic heat. A practical solution to a material problem rendered beautiful by its effect. The reflection of the golden goddess shimmers on the surface of the pool. The water is still, disturbed only by the faintest vibration of footsteps on the marble floor. The golden light catches the underside of the goddess's face, softening the martial fierceness of the helmet and aegis, making her look almost gentle, almost approachable. Phidias was accused of embezzling gold from this very statue. His enemies, who were really the enemies of Pericles, claimed he had skimmed from the allocation. But Phidias had been careful. He had the gold plates weighed against the original inventory, and every drachma was accounted for. He was acquitted of the gold charge, though other accusations would follow. The politics of Athens devour their greatest citizens with regularity. You stand before the pool, looking up at the goddess. The honeycomb is in your hands now, unwrapped from its linen. The wax is golden in the reflected light, the hexagonal cells perfect and mathematical, each one filled with sweetness by 10,000 bees who have no concept of temples or gods or sick children who recovered. You made a vow. Your son lay burning with fever, and you stood in the dark courtyard of your house and looked up at the Acropolis, at the glow of the temple fires against the night sky. And you promised, if the boy lives. If Athena turns her shield toward this house, a honeycomb. The sweetest offering you could think of, because sweetness was what was missing from those terrible nights. The boy lived. The fever broke on the 5th night, and by morning he was asking for water and then for food and then, by afternoon, to go outside and play. You wept then, though you did not let anyone see. You placed the honeycomb on the offering table before the pool. There are other offerings here, small clay figurines, a bronze pin, a handful of grain in a dish, a ribbon of dyed wool. Each one represents a prayer answered or a hope expressed. None of them are large. The great sacrifices happen outside at the altar in the open air, where cattle are slaughtered and the smoke rises to the gods. In here, in the dim golden light, the offerings are personal, quiet, between one person and one goddess. The honeycomb sits among the other offerings, its golden wax catching the reflected light from the pool. It does not look out of place, it looks like it belongs here. A small square of sweetness given in gratitude, placed before 11 meters of gold and ivory. The scale is absurd, the gesture is not. You stand for a long moment. There is nothing more to say. The vow is fulfilled, the offering is placed. The goddess looks down, or seems to, her ivory face catching the light from the pool. You feel the weight of the walk leaving your legs. The climb up the sacred rock, the crossing of the Agora, the narrow lanes of Melite, the cool courtyard at dawn. The whole morning has led to this quiet room and this quiet moment. A priest moves through the cella behind you, tending the lamps. The olive oil makes a soft sound as he fills each one. The flames flicker and the shadows on the walls shift, and the gold of the statue ripples with living light. The priest does not speak to you. He does not need to. This is between you and Athena. You think of your son sleeping in the quiet house. By now he will be awake, eating his own breakfast in the courtyard, perhaps chasing the neighbor's cat or throwing figs at the well-stone. He does not know about the vow. He does not know about the honeycomb or the walk or this room. He knows only that he was sick and now he is not, and that the world is full of interesting things that need his attention. That is enough. That is everything. You turn slowly from the statue and walk back toward the doorway. The rectangle of sunlight ahead grows brighter as you approach. The sounds of the Acropolis plateau drift in, a murmur of voices, the cooing of pigeons, the distant cry of a raven. The world outside the cella continues, unhurried and warm. You step through the eastern doorway and the sunlight strikes your face. The warmth is immediate and full. The blue attic sky stretches overhead, deeper now than it was at dawn, the blue of late morning settling in. The marble of the Acropolis plateau reflects the light back upward, and for a moment you are suspended in brightness. The cicadas are louder now, their drone rising from every olive tree and garden below the Acropolis. The sound carries up the cliff face in waves, a constant electric pulse that marks the warming of the day. By noon it will be a wall of sound. For now it is a steady, rhythmic hum, the background music of an attic spring. You walk back across the plateau, past the altars and the votive statues, past the sacred olive tree and its enclosure, past the bronze Athena Promachos with her spear raised against the sky. Your hands are empty now. The weight of the honeycomb is gone, and your arms feel lighter, and something in your chest has loosened. A knot you did not know you were carrying has come untied. The propylaea frames the western view as you approach. Through the columns, you can see the whole sweep of the city below, the tile rooftops, the plane trees of the Agora, the smoke from workshops and cooking fires, drifting in thin columns. The gray-green hills of Attica beyond the walls, rolling away toward the mountains. And beyond those mountains, somewhere, the sea. You step back through the gateway. The painted stars on the blue ceiling pass above you. The cool shade of the passage wraps around you briefly, and then you are through, and the ramp descends before you, and the city waits below. The descent is easy. Your legs carry you down the marble steps and onto the packed earth of the Panathenaic way. The muscles in your thighs, tight from the climb, slowly release. The honeycomb is delivered. The morning's purpose is complete. There is nothing left to do but walk home. The Agora opens before you again, the sound rising to meet you as you descend. But the sound is different now, or you hear it differently. The vendors calling, the hammers ringing, the conversations overlapping. It is the sound of a city being alive, the sound of 40,000 people, plus the refugees, plus the slaves, plus the foreigners, all doing what they do in the ordinary course of a spring morning, buying fish, arguing politics, getting a haircut, leading goats, debating the nature of justice with a barefoot philosopher. You cross the Agora slowly. There is no reason to hurry. The plane trees give shade, and you walk beneath them, letting the dappled light play across your face and arms. A swallow darts between the columns of the Stoa Poikile. A vendor offers you a garland of myrtle, and you shake your head gently. The sun is higher now, the shadows shorter, the warmth settling in for the day. The marble of the temples and stoas has lost its morning gold and turned white in the full light. The fish stalls smell stronger. The flies are thicker. A donkey stands patiently beside a water trough, its ears flicking. You leave the Agora behind and begin the climb back up into Melite. The lanes narrow again. The houses close in, their blank walls familiar, their courtyard sounds muffled. The smell of time rises from the dry slopes. Your sandals scuff on the packed earth. A woman sits in an open doorway, spinning wool. The spindle drops and turns, the thread growing between her fingers. She does not look up as you pass. The rhythm of the spindle is its own kind of music, steady and slow, the sound of ordinary work on an ordinary morning. You turn a corner, and your street appears, the familiar walls, the fig tree visible above the roofline of your house, the herm at your threshold, smiling its archaic smile, the dried flowers still hanging from the stone. You can hear your son's voice from inside the courtyard. He is talking to someone or to himself, the stream of words that children produce when the world is new and every thought demands to be spoken. You cannot make out the words, just the sound of him alive and present and filling the morning with his voice. You touch the herm as you pass through the doorway. The stone is warm now, heated by the morning sun. You lift the bronze latch and push open the heavy wooden door. The courtyard is cool and green. The fig tree casts a circle of shade on the paving stones. The well stone gleams. Your son looks up from whatever he is doing. His eyes are bright and clear, his cheeks have color. He smiles and returns to his game, which involves a stick and a line drawn in the dust. You sit down on the stone bench beneath the fig tree. The walk is over, 2.5 kilometers down and back, through the lanes of Melite, across the beating heart of Athens, up the sacred rock, into the golden room, and home again. The honeycomb is with Athena now. The vow is kept. The fig tree's leaves shift in a faint breeze. Somewhere below, the Agora continues its ceaseless hum. Somewhere above, the Parthenon catches the light and holds it, 46 columns of marble standing against the blue sky. And inside, the golden goddess looks down on a small square of honeycomb among the offerings, and the bees that made it are already making more, and the sun is warm, and the city is alive, and your son is drawing in the dust with a stick. The morning softens around you. The stone bench is warm at your back. The cicadas drone from the olive trees on the slopes below. A rooster crows, much later than it should, confused by the lateness of its own waking. The sound is distant and drowsy. Your eyelids grow heavy. The shade of the fig tree is deep and green. The sounds of the city blur together into a single continuous murmur, like water running over smooth stones. The courtyard holds you, the house holds you, the morning holds you. And slowly, gently, the walk fades and the city fades. And there is only the warmth of the stone and the shade of the tree, and the sound of your son's voice, growing quieter, growing softer, until the words dissolve into the stillness, and there is nothing left but sleep. The honeycomb rests with Athena now, and you rest beneath the fig tree in your courtyard, the morning's walk complete. Let the warmth of the stone settle into you. Let the sounds of the city grow distant. The Acropolis glows above the rooftops, the Parthenon holding the light, and somewhere your son is playing quietly, and the world asks nothing more of you. Tonight, there is only sleep. This episode was produced by The Long Road. Sleep well, good night.